3 miles down, in complete darkness, a ship has been waiting. Not just any ship, a carrier that fought a battle. While already dying, she took bombs. She took torpedoes. Her crew abandoned her, and still, she refused to sink. For 56 years. No one knew exactly where she was. Then, in 2018, camera descended into the abyss, and what it found contradicted everything the official records ever claimed. The truth had been buried 3 miles beneath the Pacific, and it had been waiting for someone brave enough to look. Welcome to Deep Sea War Files. This is the place where the ocean gives up its secrets, one wreck at a time. Now, before we go any deeper into this story, a small request, and please take this seriously. If you are someone who has lived long enough to remember a world without the internet, without smartphones, without satellites telling ships where to go, then you already understand something most young people do not. Some things disappear, and the world simply moves on. But you stopped, you clicked, you stayed. So do one thing for this channel. Just one: press that subscribe button right now. Think of it as signing the guest book before entering a museum. It costs nothing, but it means everything to the people who built this place. And one more thing before we begin. Drop a comment below and tell us where in the world are you watching this from today. Whether you are sitting in London, Lagos, Lahore, or Los Angeles, we want to know. Every single location gets read. Every single one. Now, let us go back to 1942. The year is 1942. The Pacific War is not going well for the United States. Japan controls vast stretches of ocean. Its naval force is powerful, disciplined, and deeply confident. American commanders are calculating losses they can barely afford. And then, a battered carrier limps into Pearl Harbor. USS Yorktown has just come from the Battle of Coral Sea. She has a bomb hole through her flight deck. 66 of her men are dead. Navy engineers walk through her damaged compartments and deliver their assessment without hesitation. 3 months, minimum. That is how long she needs before she can fight again. Admiral Chester Nimitz listens to the report. He looks at the intelligence sitting on his desk, decoded Japanese communications confirming that a massive enemy fleet is heading toward Midway Atoll. The battle will happen in days, not months. He makes a decision that military historians still debate. 3 days. That is all Yorktown gets. Welders flood the ship in shifts. Workers sleep on the docks between rotations. No one goes home. The repair operation runs 24 hours straight, patching, sealing, and reinforcing a carrier that by every technical standard should be sitting in dry dock for the next 12 weeks. On May 30th, 1942, USS Yorktown sails out of Pearl Harbor. Welders are still aboard when she leaves. She is not fully repaired. She is not fully ready, but she is moving. And in Admiral Nimitz's calculation, a damaged carrier at Midway is worth infinitely more than a perfect carrier still sitting in harbor. This is the first lesson the story of Yorktown teaches. Readiness is never perfect. The moment, however, does not wait. Yorktown joins Enterprise and Hornet northwest of Midway. Together, they form the American ambush, 3 carriers hiding beyond the horizon while Japanese Admiral Nagomo advances. Believing the American fleet is nowhere near, he is wrong. On June 4th, 1942, at 8:38 in the morning, Yorktown launches her air group into a sky that will decide the Pacific War. Her 17 dive bombers climb through broken clouds and find the Japanese carrier Soryu below them. 3 1,000-pound bombs drop from altitude and tear through Soryu's flight deck. She will sink by evening, taking 718 men into the deep. Yorktown has drawn first blood, but the battle is far from over, and the punishment coming for her is unlike anything her designers ever imagined she could survive. She had already given everything, and the battle was asking for more. It was 12 o'clock noon on June 4, 1942, and USS Yorktown was sailing through a sky that was about to turn against her. Japanese scout planes had found her, and now 18 Val dive bombers were screaming down from altitude, cutting through Yorktown's combat air patrol like it was made of paper. 3 bombs hit. Not 1, not 2. 3. The first bomb punched straight through the flight deck and exploded deep inside the ship, killing every boiler instantly. The second detonated inside the funnel itself, sending a column of black smoke visible for miles. The third drove through 4 decks of steel before exploding near the forward magazines. Yorktown went dead in the water. No power, no speed, no boilers. A 30,000-ton ship, drifting silently in the middle of a battle she had started winning just 2 hours earlier. Any other carrier would have been abandoned at that moment. But Yorktown's damage control teams did something that still astonishes naval engineers today. They worked in smoke-filled compartments, in darkness, in heat that bent metal. They moved through the ship like men who had simply refused to accept the situation. By 1:40 in the afternoon, barely 90 minutes after taking 3 bombs, Yorktown had fires under control. Generators running, enough boilers lit to push 20 knots. A dead ship had come back to life. But fate was not finished. At 2:45 in the afternoon, a lookout screamed, "Torpedo wakes, port side, inbound." 4 Type 91 torpedoes from Japanese aircraft were cutting through the water directly toward her. 2 of them hit, both slammed into Yorktown's port side with devastating precision, buckling frames, rupturing fuel tanks, flooding 3 boiler rooms simultaneously. She took on a 26-degree list. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Captain Elliot Buckmaster gave the order no captain ever wants to give. Abandon ship. Sailors slid down ropes into oil-covered water. Destroyers moved in to pull men from the sea. The great carrier sat alone, listing, bleeding fuel into the Pacific, surrounded by the chaos of a battle still raging around her. And then, something extraordinary happened. She did not sink. Through the entire night of June 4th, Yorktown wallowed in the swells, battered, abandoned, listing heavily to port. But her hull held. Her keel held. The ocean pushed, and she pushed back. By dawn on June 5th, Navy commanders made a decision that speaks volumes about what this ship meant to the American war effort. They were going back for her. A salvage crew of 170 men volunteered to reboard a crippled, listing, potentially sinking carrier in the middle of a combat zone. They reduced her list to 22 degrees. They rigged tow cables. They were actually moving her, slowly, toward Pearl Harbor. For one brief moment, it seemed Yorktown might survive Midway entirely. Then, at 1:30 in the afternoon on June 6th, a periscope broke the surface. 5 miles away, Commander Yahachi Tanabe had been stalking her for 18 hours. Submarine I-168 had been tracking the crippled carrier through the night. Patient, visible, waiting for the precise moment. At 1:36 in the afternoon, he fired 4 torpedoes from 1,400 yards. 1 passed ahead. 1 hit the destroyer Haman directly amidships. Breaking her keel, she sank in 4 minutes, taking 80 men straight to the bottom. The remaining 2 torpedoes hit Yorktown, starboard side. Frames 95 and 120. Holes 15 feet across. Blown clean through steel that had already absorbed more punishment than any carrier was designed to take. Through the night of June 6th, salvage crews worked in complete darkness as the list climbed to 27 degrees. At 5 o'clock in the morning on June 7, 1942, Yorktown rolled. At 6 o'clock in the morning, she was gone, 3 miles down, into permanent darkness. Taking 141 men with her, the ocean closed over her, and for 56 years, it told no one where she was. The ocean never forgets. It only waits. For 56 years, USS Yorktown lay in absolute darkness. 3 miles beneath the Pacific surface, untouched, unseen, undisturbed. No light had reached her. No human eye had found her. The official records sat in naval archives, stamped, filed, and accepted as truth by historians, academics, and military analysts for over half a century. But the ocean had a different version of events, and in October 2018, the technology finally existed to ask it. The research vessel Petrel cut through swells northwest of Midway Atoll on a gray October morning. She belonged to Paul Allen, the Microsoft co-founder who had spent the final years of his life and significant portions of his fortune hunting the ocean's most significant wrecks. This would be his last expedition. He would be dead within days of its conclusion, but his team did not know that yet. They were focused on something else entirely. It's an autonomous underwater vehicle. Trailing behind the Petrel on a pre-programmed search pattern was mapping the seafloor at 16,650 feet, where water pressure reaches 7,200 pounds per square inch. For 3 weeks, the sonar had returned nothing meaningful: volcanic rock, sediment plains, emptiness. Then, on a morning that the crew would never forget, the sonar return changed. A massive shadow emerged from the acoustic data, 800 feet long, sitting perfectly upright on a flat volcanic plain, 16,000 feet down. The team gathered around the monitors in silence. They had found something enormous, but something was immediately, deeply wrong. The debris field surrounding the wreck did not match the official sinking report. There was a secondary impact site 200 yards to the east that, according to every historical document, should not have existed, and the carrier's orientation on the seafloor contradicted every single survivor account on record. The remotely operated vehicle descended next, its cameras, transmitting in 4K, captured the first human glimpse of USS Yorktown in 76 years. The images arrived on the monitors slowly. As the ROV descended through layers of absolute darkness, its lights cutting a narrow cone through water that had not been disturbed since 1942. And then she appeared, not as wreckage, not as debris, but as a ship, remarkably, almost impossibly, intact. Hole number 5 remained clearly visible on the bow plating, exactly where construction records said it would be. The island superstructure retained its distinctive funnel geometry, matching original blueprints drawn in 1934. The 2 aircraft elevators measured precisely 48 by 40 feet, conforming exactly to Yorktown-class specifications. The torpedo damage told the final chapter with brutal clarity. 2 massive holes gaped open in the starboard side, at frames 95 and 120, precisely where Commander Tanabe's torpedoes had struck on June 6, 1942. The whole plating was peeled inward and upward, consistent with underwater explosions of enormous force. Interior spaces showed buckled decks and severed longitudinal girders, the permanent signature of a ship that had absorbed far more punishment than its designers ever calculated. 200 yards to the east, scattered wreckage confirmed what the secondary sonar anomaly had suggested. That was Hammond, boilers, depth charge racks, hull plating. The destroyer that had come alongside to save Yorktown, now resting near her, exactly as history recorded, but never precisely where anyone had mapped. And then, the cameras revealed something that stopped the entire research team. Something that no survivor had ever reported correctly. Something that official naval documents had recorded backwards. For 82 years, the record stated that USS Yorktown rolled to starboard before sinking. Every report, every testimony, every official document. Starboard. The photographic evidence from 16,000 feet was unambiguous. Yorktown had rolled to port. The investigators stared at their monitors. 82 years of accepted historical record, contradicted in a single image, captured by a robot camera, in complete darkness. 3 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific, extreme stress had done what it always does to human memory. It had rewritten the truth. The Naval History and Heritage Command reviewed the footage and issued official confirmation within 72 hours. The record was corrected. For the first time since 1942, the official version finally matched reality. But the deeper question was not about which direction she rolled. The deeper question was this: what else had been recorded incorrectly? What other truths were still lying at the bottom of the ocean, waiting for someone to look? Some graves are never meant to be found, and some are found precisely because the world needed to remember. USS Yorktown was both, 3 miles down, in water so cold and so dark that no living thing above a certain size had ever disturbed her rest. She had been keeping something far more valuable than secrets. She had been keeping proof that battles are never won the way official records describe them. Proof that the men who survive are rarely the ones who remember most accurately. And proof that the ocean, given enough time, always tells the truth. The discovery of USS Yorktown in 2018 did not simply close a historical chapter. It opened several new ones simultaneously. Marine scientists who studied the wreck footage found something unexpected beyond the torpedo damage and corrected orientation records: the steel hull. Forged in the 1930s from metallurgical compositions no longer used in modern shipbuilding, it's corroding at rates that challenged existing deep-sea preservation models. The data gathered from Yorktown's wreck has since been used to recalibrate how engineers calculate the long-term structural integrity of steel submerged at extreme depth and pressure. A warship, dead for 76 years, was still teaching engineers how to build better. But Yorktown had done something else in her decades of silent rest. She had become a city. The wreck now supports thriving ecosystems of amphipods, grenadier fish, and deep-sea organisms that have built entire life cycles around the artificial reef her hull created. Species that exist nowhere else in that section of the Pacific now exist because Yorktown is there. A ship built for destruction had spent 56 years quietly creating life. The legal framework surrounding Yorktown is as precise as the engineering that built her. The Sunken Military Craft Act designates USS Yorktown as an official war grave of the United States Navy. No salvage, no disturbance, no retrieval of any kind. The 141 men who went down with her on the morning of June 7, 1942, and the 80 men from Hammond resting 200 yards to the east are still on duty. The United States Navy considers them so. Their wreck is their memorial. Their depth is their protection, and the darkness surrounding them is the most permanent honor guard any Navy has ever posted. In 2019, the Navy conducted a formal memorial service at sea. Veterans, families, active duty sailors, all gathered aboard a vessel positioned directly above the coordinates where Petrel had found her. A wreath was dropped into the water. It drifted downward, slowly, through 3 miles of cold, dark ocean, toward a flight deck that had once launched the aircraft that changed the Pacific War. No one spoke for a long moment. Because there are things that words simply cannot carry. And then there is the question that serious analysts cannot ignore. The strategic question: what if Yorktown had not been at Midway? Admiral Nimitz's 3-day repair gamble. The decision that every conventional military engineer said was reckless. That decision delivered 1/3 of the killing blows against the Japanese carrier force. Her dive bombers struck Soryu. Her resilience kept Admiral Fletcher's tactical options open for hours longer than the Japanese calculated. Her refusal to die forced the enemy to commit resources to finishing her. Resources that could have been directed elsewhere. Remove Yorktown from Midway, and the entire sequence of the battle shifts. The timing changes. The strike windows close differently, and the outcome becomes something no historian can state with confidence. One damaged carrier changed everything. Not because she was perfect, not because she was fully repaired, but because she was there. USS Yorktown did not simply fight at Midway. She was Midway, and today, she rests where she earned the right to rest, 3 miles down, in silence, in darkness, still standing watch over the men who refuse to leave her. The ocean keeps their secrets, not out of indifference, but out of the deepest kind of respect one force of nature can show another. Because some ships are not built merely to sail. Some ships are built to be remembered.